But today I'm going to take a little simpler tack. I have yet to meet a Republican who doesn't understand the dynamic of the Alien Gonzalez incident in 2000. How a SWAT team on orders from a Democratic Attorney General invaded an ordinary Cuban home and tore a screaming child from the arms of his protector. That site revisited nightly in Miami-Dade, carried Florida, and with it the presidency for George W. Bush. What Republican didn't understand that? But due to our blockage of comprehensive immigration reform, Hispanics revisit serial Elian Gonzalez-style incidents of the nightly newscasts of Univision and Telemundo. Only now the villains are not the Clintonistas, but Los Republicanos. On TV, viewers see huddled Latinos cuffed by ICE raiders at their place of work, moms clutching their rosaries, priests pleading for mercy. It's really not rocket science to understand how Latino citizens react. What's weird is how few Republicans get it. Given this bombardment, it is irrelevant that Hispanic opinion on, say, aggregate immigration levels, benefits for illegals, official English, are fairly similar to those of the general public. It is mass deportation that is the deal breaker. The linked prospects of ICE raids, persecuted clergy, ruptured families, and mass profiling spooks the legal working class Latino. I will give my opinion here, something that some of the other panelists may disagree with. Republicans will not regain their rightful share of the Latino vote until we get right on comprehensive immigration reform. We all enjoy the happy talk about the natural affinity between Republicans and Latinos, shared family values, right to life, immigrant entrepreneurship, etc. It's all true. It's all true. But it's increasingly inoperative. As long as we leave the prospect of mass deportation on the table and in our platform, Democrats will beat us. Hispanics reacted negatively to Republican primary campaigns and to the talk show backdrop that inspired it. When the election came, Republican incumbents dropped like flies and traditional GOP strongholds with substantial Latino minorities. Colorado 4th, 17% Hispanic, Markey beats Musgrave. Florida 8th, 18% Hispanic, Grayson upsets Keller. Rick Rienzi's old district, Arizona 1, Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick wins. It's 16% Latino. Speaker Hastert's farmer district, this should have been a clue to Republicans, but most remain clueless. It's 18% Hispanic. For a second time, Jim Oberweis ran explicitly on deportation and lost. Some folks don't learn. John Porter loses Nevada's 3rd district to Dana Titus. The 3rd is 16% Hispanic. I could go on in this vein for quite a while. In none of these cases was immigration the sole factor, but in each a Republican lost to a Democrat whose immigration stance was more appealing to Latinos. In my study, The Edge of the Wedge, I analyzed the role of immigration in the 90 most competitive House races of '08. Let me summarize. Pro-comprehensive reform Democrats picked up roughly 14 seats at the expense of enforcement-only Republicans. In the Senate, CIR Democrats picked up 4 or 5 seats, depending on the outcome in Minnesota. This attrition must stop. The Republican Party's future is bleak unless it attracts those Latinos who share an affinity for its many issues. What can we do to change the situation? Those of us who believe in the importance of GOP Latino outreach face one major impediment and enjoy 2 structural advantages. The impediment's fairly obvious. Conservative broadcast media has found it profitable to use immigration as a scare tactic, as a straw man for every ill in society. Our own press engages in rigid censorship of the real contributions of immigrants, legal and illegal. Conservative punditry downplays the social and economic dislocation of a policy of mass deportation, the breakup of 6.6 million families, including 3.5 million American citizens. and the destruction of entire export sectors of the U.S. economy. My suggestion to those Republicans engaged in Hispanic outreach is simple. Confront these demagogues fearlessly. Don't give them a free pass when they falsify statistics. Don't give them a free pass when they impugn your patriotism. But advocates for Hispanic outreach have some long-term advantages as well. The deportationists are rapidly alienating the traditional business base of the Republican Party. From coast to coast, we find farmers, ranchers, food processors, hospitality providers, home builders, heavy constructors, and restaurateurs locked in litigation against enforcement of only fanatics. We should actively endorse their efforts and solicit their support. And finally, the marriage of convenience between social conservatives and deportationists is ripe for divorce. The Right to Life movement cannot afford to alienate the nation's most pro-life demographic, Hispanics, or its most pro-life institution, the Catholic Church. The largest Christian conservative organizations are increasingly aware that a policy of mass deportation is an impediment to their primary goal, which is the spreading of the gospel. We should enroll Hispanic social conservatives to highlight these contradictions and break this unholy alliance. In conclusion, Republicans can vastly improve our prospects among Latino voters, but to do so, we must change. We must revisit comprehensive immigration reform, and we must actively combat the anti-Latino tone that's become fashionable among some of us.